guys are kind of round there. I don't know where you'd like me to address you from, so I'll just stand over here if that's okay. Or,
where are you?
Good enough. In order to not waste too much of your time, I have a prepared address, and so I didn't ramble up here in front of you. But I'd like to start off by asking if this county commission is under oath to the Alabama Constitution. I'm not aware if you're constitutional officers or do you swear an oath to the Constitution to take this job?
We just swear in. I don't know what we swear to.
Okay, I'm just curious, if you're under oath to it or not. And I know, like the sheriff has to swear an oath to do that, but he's a constitutional officer. I don't think this body is. I was just curious. Anyway, I'll begin. There are some general concepts I wish to make clear at the outset, and I provided a handout to each one of you guys with the full text of constitutional articles and some laws on it, and I'm going to refer to them briefly, but I wanted you to have a copy on hand. In general, our Constitution protects the right to bear arms and prohibits legislation from violating any right. The Alabama Supreme Court has stated that they will protect the firewall between legislation and rights. We're a government of laws, and the source of power is the people, not the elected officials. I understand Sheriff Sutton brought a statement before this commission from the Sheriff's Association claiming that the proposed bills were, quote, bad, and that they compare to road rage. This is unsubstantiated hyperbole and not fact. Here are the facts. The official Alabama crime report for 2010 tells us that there are 1,500 residents for each on-duty law enforcement officer. The chances of an Alabama law enforcement officer being injured or killed by any Alabama citizen's firearms was less than 1 in a million. The chances of an Alabama resident being the victim of violent crime are 1 in 130. Who's really in danger here is the question. The Commission, I believe, has erred greatly in suggesting a resolution to oppose HB 132 and SB 337. From the quotes in the Enterprise Ledger, it seems that you don't understand the issue that you're addressing. The legislation does not grant any new privileges, and it does not deprive law enforcement of any power or any money. It only restores some basic rights that have been taken by law and fixes some issues that are often misconstrued. Here are some of the things these bills actually accomplish. It restores the rights of peaceable assembly. Under current law, citizens of Alabama can either peaceably assemble or maintain their right to self-defense, but not both at the same time. They have to give up one of those rights to exercise the other. No citizen should ever have to give up one of their rights without due process of law, taking one of those rights from them. It removes a confusing piece of code known as 13A 1152. That's in the handout that I gave you, the actual current code. The original law from the Acts of 1909 is the last page in there, and that's when that was 1919, I'm sorry. It was when that was originally based, and that's in there in its entirety as well, and you can see how it's become mangled by comparing the two. The law, or by law, chargeable offenses under Section 13A, which is the criminal code of Alabama, must expressly define charges and penalties. And there is no charge in 52. This is what the focus of this law is about. And there used to be a charge in 1919, but it's gone. So if read verbatim, 52 would have that no one in Alabama can ever touch a pistol off of their own property. Not at a friend's house, not at a gun range, anywhere. The permit process in 13A 1173 does not remove the property restriction at all. And I say this because you get these arguments from the sheriff about the permit process. It's nonsensical language. It's been repealed twice, but it's never been cleaned out of the code due to a variety of errors over time in the last 100 years. Another thing the law does is it allows good citizens to use the castle doctrine, which has been adopted by our legislature. Under our current castle law, you can defend yourself in your car or in your home, but you can't use a gun unless you have permission from the sheriff and you pay an annual fee for the right. The bill simply removes vehicle from the permit process. A permit is still required to conceal a pistol on your person. The Sheriff's Association would have you think that we're all on the verge of road rage and that the permit process has some magical ability to predict perpetrators and keep guns out of their hands. Law enforcement can't even stop their own officers from committing many violent crimes in society. Just recently, an ICE agent shot his supervisor over an evaluation right in the office and killed by another agent in the office. What the proposal does not do, it does not give guns to everyone. Commissioner Brooks was quoted in the Ledger as making this statement, and it's absurd. It does not prevent law enforcement from keeping the guns out of bad people's hands, as quoted by Sheriff Sutton. This is clearly accomplished by a law called 13A 1172. It prohibits all felons from ever having a gun, pistol, rifle, or anything. It's not touched by this proposal at all. And that's in your handout as well, all the people that are restricted from having a firearm in Alabama. It does not allow open carry. Open carry is already legal and has been unwaveringly protected by the Alabama Supreme Court since 1840. Concealed carry was not allowed by anyone in Alabama since the 1930s. And obviously, if you put two and two together, the acts of 1919 were before 1930. There was no concealed carry in Alabama before the 30s. I brought along some crime reports from the last week. Each paper has at least one arrest for a crime involving a firearm. And the question here is, how many of these robbers bothered to get a permit? 29 February, Dothan Eagle, liquor store robbed at gunpoint. 2 March, Eagle, Dollar General robbed at gunpoint. 3 March, Eagle, teen faces armed robbery, and Dothan man charged in Eufaula shooting. 5 March, Southeast Sun, Sunday night shooting, under investigation. Only good citizens bother to get permits. I contend that the sheriff can offer no evidence that permits reduce crime. They only identify good citizens and produce revenue. If you look at the history of the permit process, vehicle carry restriction and prohibition on peaceable assembly while carrying are all traced to Alabama's racist past. Now they are used to deprive citizens of their rights to self-defense and to generate cash. To this day, it remains an attack felt most by the poor who don't have the extra cash to buy their rights each year. In conclusion, this commission is a body formed under state law with very specific duties and strong restrictions from taking on almost any action outside of law. You are not elected to represent me in matters of gun law. You have far exceeded your lawful authority to act and have done so in, I believe, ignorance of the actual issue at hand. Our sheriff is our first constitutional officer in our government structure. He has at his disposal clear and obvious laws to keep guns out of the hands of his, quote, bad people. They were identified by a jury of peers through due process of law. Yet Alabama sheriffs, and the association in particular, continue to advocate depriving good citizens of their rights to self-defense, treating us as guilty until proven innocent. Our first line of defense, being our sheriff, has actually become another wave of assault on our rights. If the commission insists on suppressing our rights, they should consider the right to vote. It's far more dangerous to our society because we elect people that think we've somehow made them king. I ask you to give serious consideration to your actual duties under law and the Constitution of Alabama. Not to behave like Representative Barry Moore, also quoted in the paper. Just over a year ago, he stood on the steps of the courthouse in Alabama addressing a tea party, and I was there, you might have guessed. And he quoted Thomas Jefferson about people fearing their government. Last week, when faced with citizens asking to exercise these constitutional rights with regard to these bills, Barry Moore was quoted to say, "We'll push back," to show us who's really in charge. And I'm going to paraphrase Barry Moore. I fear Barry Moore. Should I fear the sheriff and the council as well when my rights are at stake? For 21 years, I laid my life out for this country in service in the United States Army. And a bunch of local officials are more dangerous to my freedom than any enemy I ever faced. And I think that's shameful. That's all I have for you.